Hi, and welcome to Podcasting 101 with Rachel. This podcast is for busy female entrepreneurs who run their own businesses and want to start a podcast or who may already have a podcast. I want to share practical information and tips on how you can get your podcast started and managing it along the way. I'll also be interviewing other female podcast hosts to give you real insight into what it's like having your own podcast. Hi everyone, and welcome to this week's episode. Today we're going to talk about ethical marketing, what it is, what it means to my guest, and how you can implement this into your podcast and your business. Let me introduce you to Chrysa Sto. Chrysa is a seasoned podcast consultant and manager for ethical and eco-conscious service businesses. She works with human-centric marketers, coaches and change makers who want to connect with their audience, increase business leads and expand their network through impactful podcast conversations. She's the host of the Human to Human Business Show, which aims to bridge the gap between profitability and ethical marketing sales, a podcast that is coming soon. So welcome, Chrysa. It's lovely to have you here.
Thank you so much for having me. Thank you for the invitation, Rachel. It's glad to be here.
Yeah, we've had a few conversations now over LinkedIn and calls and things. So I just want to dive right in. And What is ethical marketing?
Yeah, thanks so much for making the question. So, there are a lot of information about ethical marketing, and in the recent years, this term is turned into a buzzword. So for me, because I'm a podcast consultant and manager, I combine the ethical marketing principles into podcasting, or I integrate them. So for me, because there are a lot of definitions out there, it's being transparent and putting the customer or listener or, people first when you do your marketing and sales. When I say being transparent, I mean, for example, when you're running a marketing campaign, have you considered how you use, how to structure your emails, for example, or your podcast episodes with the listener and viewer in mind? Have you considered minimizing the countdown timers that you have in, or the language that you use in your marketing campaign? We need the language to not be pushy and not direct people into making a decision that they might not need. So transparency means to me putting the person first, letting them know what they are going to get from any marketing campaign, from any product or service that you advertise, letting them know and informing them of what's in it for them and what the package includes, without the extra,
Mm-hmm. The kind of scarcity marketing.
Yeah,
get this. You have to get it right now, or you're never going to get it again.
Exactly.
Language.
Yeah, the scarcity word is the word that I was looking for. Yeah, without the scarcity. And some people, might be, because I always get the question, but if we, get out of the equation the scarcity and the scarcity thing and the countdowns and, the language doors close in X day, in X date, how do we sell? How do we sell to people? And my answer is, we sell to people by actually providing a product or a service for them, a product or service they need and they want as well. We need to have both, because think of this. Imagine that you're running a campaign, you're launching a membership or something, and you're bringing in, you have a goal of 50 people, and you're bringing in 20 people, and those 20 people see can see in the membership that, for example, they sold to something and they are not getting what they've been sold to, if that makes sense. What happens with those 20 people? They are likely to sign off and leave the next month or whenever their subscription ends, and they are more likely not to recommend you to to their friends, business friends, collaborators, etc. And, you're out for them. You're out of the equation for them. Maybe they unfollow you or something. But it's not the unfollow that matters. Is when we mention ethical marketing, is not tricking people into making a decision they don't want or need.
Yeah.
In a nutshell.
Yeah. I mean, absolutely. It's that kind of bro marketing that you kind of get, all that. It's also the type of thing that tends to put, especially women, a lot of the women, female business owners that I've spoken to, that kind of pushy, I don't want to be, the sales makes me icky, I don't want to be that pushy salesperson. We think of that, I know in the UK, it's that pushy truck salesman or car salesman that someone's like kind of almost bullying you into a decision that isn't potentially right for you, especially with some people have questions over, say, the amount of investment. We all have a budget in mind, we all have a certain amount of money that we can spend, whatever that amount is. And I've heard of people saying, I can't afford this. And then you get the answers like, well, you can't afford not to, And it's like, you should never be pushing somebody who's saying they haven't got the budget or they can't afford to into a sale. So you're just saying that we have to take all those things into consideration and not be like that, and be, like you said, clear and transparent. Yeah,
clear and transparent, and more human-centric. We need to treat people in our marketing campaigns or sales calls like as we want to be treated. When we get on a sales call or when we sign up for a low-cost product and we are interested in getting into their high-paying, product, but not quite there yet because of maybe of low budget or interest or time. So again, like we need to treat them in our marketing, including the podcasting, as we want to be treated.
Yeah.
And this is where the podcast comes in, like how I integrate these principles into podcasting is actually podcasting, is a marketing arm for many businesses out there. They use it to promote their services, products, and work, build their authority. So same principles apply to podcasting. Like if you throw into an episode 5 ads saying and mentioning 5 different services that you have or 5 different workshops that you're about to launch, by the second ad, I think the listener will skip, will leave. Definitely. So being mindful of how many ads are you putting into episodes, how long are the ads is just an example. Putting again the people first and considering those little things that make a difference. Because for me as a listener, because I listen to a lot of podcasts, again, if you open up an episode, because we say to people, put the ad at the beginning of the episode, right? So the ad can be listened. But if the ad is too long, you've lost me. You've just lost me, and I'm not interested to listen to the episode right now. After I listen to a 2-minute ad, for example. So it's those little things and that make a difference into how we approach podcasting and marketing from an ethical standpoint.
I listened to a podcast a while ago, actually. It was done by my friend Hannah McCormick on the Showing Up Solo podcast. She had a lady on there talking about like trauma-informed sales. I know you're talking about ethical sales, but there was a little bit of a crossover there. But, having those principles of considering the language that you're using and what you're putting across, taking into consideration, these quote unquote people you're trying to reach or whatever. They are people. We are all humans. And I love what you said about, treating them how you want to be treated. I say that to my kids all the time. Like, this is how we have to be. You treat other people how you want to be treated, because that is, basic kindness and compassion to everybody, really. And I love that. I think that we do need to not get too persuaded to be too blunt in our language with our sales. Obviously, we have to be clear because clarity is important, but you can be clear and have that clarity and not be creating that feeling of scarcity or, you know, panic buying and things like that. Because I think nowadays as well, everybody just switches off from, I know that I would, and a lot of people that I've spoken to that would just, I don't want to engage with that person because they are just trying to, you know,
to make the sale, to get the sale. Yeah,
and
definitely.
they don't care about you. They're not going to really look after you as well when they've brought you into the fold. When you've bought their product, are you going to be looked after? Are you going to feel that they can do what you want them to do, whatever is services you bought off them? So all that care you'll take on the front end will hopefully then ensure them to show who you are really and be authentic.
Yeah, and also like adding to that, to what we are already saying, another example that, you know, some people might be interested to listen to is, I see a lot of people, you know, putting out, don't want to mention like what technology is being used, but I see a lot of people putting out like quote-unquote live workshops. And the workshop is not actually live, it's a recorded workshop that is being advertised or promoted as live. This is completely unethical, and this is completely like, you don't want to do that, because people and listeners and viewers, like all of the people all over the internet, and people especially that are engaged in business conversation, business and sales, are aware of those things and practices, and also intentional of their decisions, of their purchasing decisions. So for me, I get that you can record the workshop and, you know, can be an evergreen workshop that you can promote and release again and again, but you can do it simply by, you know, putting the workshop whatever you want on your website or wherever, and letting people know that this is a recorded workshop that uses the practices of like today or of this year, and you can still use it. That's it. Because, I just wanted to mention that because I recently stumbled upon those things.
Yeah,
those workshops.
I've come across that as well. And it was like a free, like it was used as a lead magnet, but which is like you say, it's totally fine. But I think to say totally it is a live workshop when actually it's not a live workshop. Yeah. Because, you know, I noticed it because you could buy it at any time. And I was like, how is it live? How is she doing it? And they're like, oh, right, because it was live. But I think, like, you're right. It's making that clarification between, you know, we did this workshop. It was, we thought it was a great success. Everybody got loads out of it. You will still get the benefit of the workshop, even though you're watching a past recording of it. Like you say, having that transparency.
Yeah, and the people that are interested in the workshops, these workshops content, they will actually buy it. Like even if it's recorded. Like I've bought myself a few workshops that were recorded, and like they were great.
Yeah, I've a few of them. I've bought the ticket for the live workshop, knowing I couldn't go, checked that I had the recording so that I could at least then think, actually, I really want to listen to this, but I can't go live. I'm going to listen to the recording. So I've purchased it kind of ahead of time, knowing I wouldn't be able to make it, but like got that, because it's still, there's lots of value to be had from those types of things. What are the biggest things or the biggest challenges that podcasters come up against in terms of ethical marketing? What are the ways that we can incorporate this into our practice, into our podcast, into our business? And what are kind of like the easiest ways or the easiest things to think about?
It's a great question. We can go a lot of ways in this question, but I'll talk about three things people can do, either like people interested in integrating ethical marketing into their business or into their podcast. So first, again, going back to the transparency part, just be mindful of what the language you use in your marketing campaigns, when you get to sales calls. For example, one thing about sales calls that I like and I practice is getting the permission from the person that I'm speaking to actually send a proposal or send an offer. Like, this applies to everyone. So you can ask them, like, is this okay with you? Is this, like, can I move forward with sending you a proposal about what we talked about? Simply this thing makes a huge difference, because it shows your human side to the other person. It shows that you actually care for them and want their permission to move forward. And it's not like one other sales call on your to-do list. For example, the first thing is this: when we talk about sales calls, when we talk about podcasting, I would say, again, because there are a lot of ads, incorporated into podcasting these days. And I know, it's a necessary thing. It's working. Ads are working. But be mindful of how long your ads are, what type of content, like what type of offers you advertise within those ads, if those offers are still applicable to the listener. If the offer is, like, for example, a workshop, make sure you mention that this is a paid workshop, a free workshop, things like that. But increase the clarity into your ads and make them short, sweet, and to the point, like in a nutshell. And third is about marketing and how we show up, like, on social media, on our newsletters. So again, for example, let's talk about newsletters. When we talk about newsletters, and promoting your products or offers within a newsletter, I like the newsletters to be short, to highlight the link or the button they want me to go through. But I don't like, for example, countdown timers that they are not, they don't represent truth. Because, for example, because I've seen from the inside, people have, like, doors close tomorrow, and they still accepting people, like, 2 days into the future, starting from tomorrow. So if you have, like, availability for one more week, if you want to include a countdown timer, it's better to just change the date or make a short video, informing people, hey, I'm adding one more week into the campaign or something like that. Just be transparent with them, rather than, closing the doors and then DMing people about joining the program or whatever. These things don't work. And actually, it's how do you call this in English? Oh gosh, I cannot remember the term right now, the phrase, but it's like pushing them away from you and like pushing them to not unfollow you, but not engage with you, like, in the nearby future.
Yeah, you're repelling them away from you, really, aren't you?
Yeah.
Yeah, because I personally don't see the need for that type of marketing. That's something that I would never do. I mean, I've seen some people I know that have got a countdown timer, but they are saying, it's a couple of days till the cart closes. They're not pushy emails. They're saying when it's closing, and it closes when it says it's going to close as well, because I know that one of the ladies I know that's done it, she is very much does not want to do, she does not do pushy sales, she does not do that kind of thing. And I think that you're doing what you say you're going to do.
Yeah.
Rather than
exactly.
like we've talked about previously about the scarcity and it kind of makes people panic, doesn't it? Like, oh no.
Yeah.
And you see on clothes things all the time. Oh, there's only one left in this, and you're like, really? I don't know.
Yeah, but think of yourself 5 years ago. I don't know how I don't remember how many years are you busy, but think of yourself 5 years ago. Because if you ask me, I've been in that position. I wanted like a course or a workshop or something so badly because at that time I thought that it was going to help me, achieve X. And at that time I couldn't afford it. And it was, emotionally, it touched me like, it touched my emotions, and I felt like bad. I felt, oh, I'm not gonna do it, when I wasn't aware of like that things are going on a circle, these courses, relaunching in a few months or whenever. But yeah, it actually tries to pursue people into buying now, so they have like the target number of students they have put into their lists, but it's not putting people first because it's not like this practice doesn't think of the person's needs. Mm-hmm. So, for example, another thing that you can do is if you have like a small audience and you're in the first stages of launching courses, a paid workshop, or a subscription service, something like that, is you can have connection calls, for example, with people that might be interested, might be a good fit, or might know someone. This is like purely a practice that I love because it's just what it says it is, like a connection call, and just mentioning, for example, we can say, how can I support your business? We can have this question at the end, or like, can you spread the word about the thing that I'm launching next month? This is it. But this makes a huge difference because people are likely to want to help you. Mm-hmm. So using this ethical practice, you're increasing the chances to have people, buy your course, product, workshop. I know it's time consuming. I know it doesn't have to be like an hour, 60-minute call. It can be 15 minutes. Just connect with the person, touch base and mention what you have coming up and if they are willing to help you, like simply and clearly. Mm-hmm. I've done it with one of my services, like I had like at the beginning of, 5 years ago when I was launching the business. And I also have done it, not this to promote like one of my services, but for the podcast. When I wanted to feedback, I reached out, for example, to 20 people via email 101. And it made a difference to the feedback that I've gotten from them. Mm-hmm. So yeah, again, like going back to the connection piece and to speaking to people one-on-one makes a difference. I know it's time consuming and there are a lot of ways, you can promote product or course. But if you are in the beginning phase of your journey, I think this will help a lot and also shows that you care about them.
Mm-hmm. Starting with good intentions, building, start from the beginning.
Yeah, exactly.
In terms of your podcast and your clients, what other ways do you think about it in terms of when you're bringing guests into your podcast or you're writing, or is it mainly to do with the marketing and promotion side of things for your podcast?
Yeah, that's a good question. Definitely you can integrate ethical principles of ethical marketing principles into your writing and into when you open up the episodes, in your intros, within the episodes, or when you write, for example, a podcast description, the language can be more human-centric, let's call it. Yeah, I'm trying to think other ways you can use this for your podcast, but it's definitely, it relies heavily on it connects heavily with promotion part and the sales part, because when we talk about sales and marketing, it's the persuasion thing,
Yeah.
But aside of that, you can have a look at what language you use in your social media posts, for example, how you start your posts or how you start your newsletters that connect with the podcast, when you promote an episode on social media. Or you can have a look at your hooks for the short form content, for Reels, TikToks, and YouTube Shorts. You can have a look at, being intentional and being authentic in your short form videos. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah, I love that. I think that with having a podcast, being, trying to be as authentically you as possible is always the way forward. Like when I first started my podcast, I had a different podcast to this one. I think I started to look at it more of as a news presenter type thing to start with. And it was like, yes, I'm going to be not like an investigative journalist, but, you know, like I've got to put on a voice, like a radio voice or something. And that just wasn't really me. And it took a couple of episodes to get into that, to start being me and really think about the guests as not some like, you know, this is an interview, da 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 da. Like, thinking of them like they're just a person like me. I want to get their story. I want to get their expertise, and like you say, you know, thinking we're all just humans and building that connection. So, and then having that flow through to our promotional kind of tactics. I try to employ those kind of tactics myself. I try to, when I talk about my guests that come on and the episodes, try and talk about it in a way, you know, that I'm speaking to you, the listener. Not like announcement, my podcast is here, come and listen to it now, please. I think that there's a lot of I've not seen too much of that, but I think that that's a bit of a mistake that people can make when they're promoting it. It's not just about you, it's about like, what are you providing for your listeners, for your audience. It's about them, really, isn't it? That's what you're doing this. You know, I'm doing this podcast to help women launch the podcast for their business, to manage it along the way, get some tips and advice. So that's the standpoint you want to come from. So, you know, applying that to your own business and your own podcast, that you're there to help and support other people rather than put it all back on you and this is me.
Sorry. I wanted to mention one more thing.
Yeah,
because in the last question that you asked for, like what else we can do in terms of incorporating ethical marketing or ethical marketing principles into our podcast. So I know this can be a huge episode. I don't want to, you know, to get that much to dig in, like that much to it. But one example is we all use AI, right? Incorporating and using AI into your podcast. For example, I use Descript, and Descript is a great platform to use for your videos, for your podcast, for your short form videos, whatever. But when you use something like Descript, be mindful of, like, when you edit in Descript and you do the chopping thing, and you just, you know, it's not about just, you know, putting an episode, cutting off the ums and ahs and just releasing it. You know, it's when we craft an episode, that is where, you know, why we actually exist, like podcast managers and editors. We craft the story. We try to be mindful of the things that need to cut off and take out, and the things that need to be taken in, maybe, in order to craft a whole episode that is actually pleasant to listen to. So this is just one more thing, like be mindful of how you use AI, or like AI writing into your, like putting a podcast episode and getting social media captions. Yeah, I know, I get it. It's good to incorporate AI, but have a second look. When you have this like AI, incorporate AI written social media posts, have a second look. Like, is this sounds like you? Make a few edits, maybe spend a few minutes, make a few edits, so you make it sound like you. You make it appear like you've written it, like not from the beginning. It's okay to use AI, but you polished it so it's actually you speaking through this text.
Yeah, I tend to use AI as a kind of jumping off point because I can never really get it to sound like me. And there are lots of those words that, you know, it uses that if you read someone else's post, you're kind of like, okay, they use ChatGPT or something. I've been using Claude.ai recently, and I've just got the paid version of it at the moment. I'm just trying it out, and I've been pretty happy with it, but I've been using it for some SEO descriptions for my website, which I found have worked really well. But it gives me an idea of some of the points. It just makes it easier to pick out those points. But then we all have the way that we like to write, and I like to write quite personably. I don't write very formally at all, really. And I like to do it in that way. And yes, it does take longer to do it that way, but I don't know. For me, it kind of feels like I would rather do less and have more me in it than kind of churn out some of the AI stuff that doesn't sound quite like you, because I don't think it'll really hit the mark with the people that are that are reading it. So you're not best representing yourself, your podcast, your business, if you're using a lot of generic things and you don't really speak like that, or you don't really, they're not your words. So those are just things to bear in mind.
Exactly. Yeah, definitely. You're not representing your brand and your, values, but you're also, you're not ethical in terms of how you present yourself, because this is what you put out there is not actually you, It's a huge difference to use AI as you do, for example, to have it as a jumping points, and to incorporate AI like heavily into your episodes, into your podcast episodes. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much for this conversation, Chrysa. It's been really great chatting with you and learning more about ethical marketing. There's some great points and advice that have been brought up there. And I just think the key one is what you said about treat other people how you want to be treated, and, being kind and sticking to your authentic self. Thank you so much. Would you like to just let us know where you hang out the most, or where people can find you if they want to get in touch?
Definitely. Thank you so much for having me, Rachel. It was a great conversation. I think there were a few great points people can listen to and get some tips. And so I mostly hang out on LinkedIn. You can find me at Chrysa Sto. Also, if you Google Chrysa Sto, my website will pop up probably in the second place. It's chrysastoiludi.com, but it's tricky to pronounce it and to spell. Yeah, so just type Chrysa Sto and my LinkedIn and website will pop up. So, yeah.
Brilliant. I'll pop all the links in the show notes as well, so you can easily get in touch with Chrysa if you need to. Thanks again, and we will catch everybody soon. Thanks a lot. Thanks for listening to the show. If you'd like to connect with me or get in touch, then head on over to my website. If you liked the episode, then I'd love it if you could leave me a review in your chosen podcast app. Your feedback is much appreciated. See you next time.